Hello. You're listening to the first episode of The Dream Freaks, where we dive deep into the liminal realms to activate your dreams. Thank you for joining us. Hello, welcome to our first episode of The Dream Freaks.
Woo!
We are The Dream Freaks.
We are.
I'm Alejandro Salinas. I'm a dream guide, massage therapist, and yoga teacher in Chicago.
And I'm Tree Carr. I'm a dreaming guide, a death doula, and a tarot reader in London.
And I'm Jenniffer Claroscura, and I'm a dream guide specializing in dream work and dream interpretation in New York.
So, this is our very first episode. We're super excited to be with you all.
Yeah.
We thought we would start off by finding out how we all met. Jenniffer and Tree. You guys
Instagram.
met online, is that correct?
Yeah, basically it was Instagram. It was the good old Instagram. That's how Jenniffer found me. And I think it was through a series of hashtags that she found me. Maybe it was lucid dreaming. Yeah, so we basically found our dream tribe, and then Alej, then we connected probably like a year later on Instagram as well.
Also Instagram. Yeah, I messaged Tree, and she was super friendly off of the bat. I saw she was a musician, a death doula, and a lucid dream. I was like, this person needs to be my best friend. Like,
Female Alej.
yeah, basically. And just off the bat, it was super smooth sailing. We were nerding out over dreams and death and music. It was great.
Yeah,
I think that was a year ago.
That would have been a year ago, and then it's been 2 years since I've known Jenniffer now.
Yeah, 2 years.
Yeah, so basically, almost from the beginning, Jenniffer and I got straight into the experiments. And then one of the first experiments was the mutual dreaming. Yeah, it was amazing because it worked the first time I tried it, which slightly blew me away. And
Totally.
Then when I woke up in the morning, I just woke up saying, "Oh my God, like life is so amazing!" And woke up my partner, who started recording me. So he recorded my experience, which I have an MP3 of that first ever mutual dream sharing experience. And then with Alej, I tried to do one with you as well.
Yeah.
Which ended up as like a kind of an astral experience. We're trying to create a portal to get to Chicago.
Yeah.
Oh,
and then,
wow.
And then ended up having like this like 3D hologram map in the palm of my hand of the city of Chicago. And I saw a blue dot of where to go. And it was like this specific building with a dome. And when I shared notes with Alej afterwards,
princess turrets.
Yeah, with the little turrets.
You know, like the princess castle. You know, like you imagine like Rapunzel, like sitting out there, like little like turret,
the tower,
like, little tower turret. Yeah, which there are buildings like that in Chicago, like not far from me.
Amazing.
Yeah, that was the cool thing because it was an aerial view of Chicago. I've never, I don't know about these things. I didn't know that there were turrets or this kind of architecture. But yeah, so that was really cool. So I mean, we found our dream tribe. We found each other, and we've all, pretty much off the bat started engaging in these sort of these experiments, which I think has been interesting. And we've all been talking ever since then, like always sharing dreams and unpacking each other's dreams. And
I think the idea of starting a podcast began when we wanted to do some sort of collaboration, but it was a collaboration where we wanted to communicate that all areas and aspects of dreaming belong together, and that in the community of dreamers there needs to be an integration of the lucid dreaming with the dream work, with death, and all these other components. And we didn't have a name at that moment, right?
No, we didn't.
No. I think we have Bowie to blame.
The Moon Age Dreamers.
The Moon Age, yeah, because we were like contemplating a whole bunch of different names. We had like a long list of possible names. There were some funny ones on there.
Oh yeah.
I think the Dream Freaks. I don't know if the Dream Freaks was originally on there.
Freaks?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because there's some pretty lofty ones on
Oh my
there.
God.
Lofty.
Lofty. But I think the Dream Freaks ended up being like...
Oh, no, because we were calling each other the Dream Geeks on chat.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it wouldn't be far from the dream geeks to think of the dream freaks.
Yeah, exactly.
But we immediately clicked on it because it just felt right. It
Well,
like totally
yeah.
identified who we were.
And didn't it resonate on some levels because in a way we were all sort of like the freaks growing up, loners, the weirdos in school,
Goths.
the little social misfit outcasts. So
We are like the disowned aspects of the people around us.
that's really good.
You know? We're like that nightmare element.
That reflection.
Yeah, because I mean, you get rejected by a collective that was our classroom or whatever social environment.
Or just,
I feel like that makes us that shadow, right? We were the shadows.
Yeah.
Not feeling like we quite fit into a certain spot. You know, like I wouldn't say I was necessarily rejected, but I just felt like nothing quite felt like, you know, home base often.
Outsider.
Yeah, you know, like I'm just visiting this clique or something, ethereally moving between social groups.
And we all share an obsession with dreams.
It is an obsession.
So then, guys, why is dreaming so important?
I think dreams they're just so wow.
Just drop it in, Alej. Drop it in.
Drop it in. You know, I've just from a young age, I was super into dreams, and the more I found out, the more I tried to do it because I was not a very good natural dreamer. They never came to me naturally. I always had to kind of work for them. And just the more I read and studied and tried to do it, it was just going right down the rabbit hole, which led me to learning about Tibetan dream yoga, to learning about the connection to dreams and dying, that falling asleep isn't unlike the process of dying, and that the dreams in the Tibetan tradition are not unlike the state of consciousness we have in that period of death in these bardo realms. And, you know, studying it, looking into Carl Jung and his work with the unconscious, the shadow, and how dreams are this wonderful vessel to take us directly into this subconscious space and explore what is uncovered. One of my favorite Jung quotes, he says that enlightenment comes not from imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. And through the dream work, that is like, you know, the dark of the night of sleep and dreams, where sometimes we don't remember our dreams. Sleep is seen as this period of just kind of blacking out for some people, where it's just darkness. It is during the night, and bringing that awareness, this flame of lucidity, little candle into the night and illuminating us.
That's an amazing way of putting it. I guess dreams are important to me because they're kind of my very first experiences of consciousness. So if I look back at childhood, dreams are the first thing that I can remember of being conscious and alive. And so they've always held a real importance in a way. I've always seen them as experiences of consciousness. So I've never seen them as you know, these like silly little apparitions or imaginations as you sleep. I've always seen them as experiences as you sleep, and just the symbology and the emotive content, and also the kind of more unexplained content, like the out of body experiences or the astral lucid dreaming, has always held like a really profound effect. So when I wake up, I feel like I've experienced something. It's not just something I shrug off. So it's important to me because I see consciousness as something that's ever evolving. So as humans, we especially if you're living consciously every day, you can expand your consciousness. So I see dreams as part of that expansion of consciousness. So it's as you sleep, you're exploring and you're learning and you're evolving, and you can bridge this through into your waking life. So that's kind of why it holds an importance to me. I'm also open to the possibility and the ideas of dreams as being kind of more than just a biological thing that we go through on a nightly basis, but that dreams are maybe part of some sort of bigger picture multiverse sort of scenario.
Yeah.
And then in fact that our consciousness is experiencing things on a multidimensional sort of level and not so much a biological level. So yeah, that's why dreaming is important to me. I see myself as an explorer and someone who's very avid at evolving my consciousness. And so dreaming is part of that.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's great. Definitely that expansion, that expanded view.
Mm-hmm.
You, Jenny?
Well, for me, it's always been linked with an existential meaning. I believe that my way of discovering why I'm here, why I'm alive, my purpose, my mission, everything is linked with dreams. I seem to go into a dream and I'm able to connect with so many different aspects of myself that are so unknown to me, I include everything within the dream, everything, including waking reality, death, um, the other side, all of those things, astral. It all somehow is encompassed within what I believe is a dream. And so dreaming is just the way that I live, the way that I discover and uncover the hidden meanings behind who I am and what my life is about, why I'm here, why I don't remember. It's a process of remembering and awakening, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And so on that note, how do you guys personally work with your dreams?
I talk about them and I examine them.
Yeah.
Because actually for the longest time I wasn't super into interpreting dreams. And honestly, that's something I've only been starting to do a little more recently, especially meeting you all. And before it was just about like getting lucid, and like we were saying earlier, of kind of expanding the dream work and all that entails. I was just very focused on lucidity, very stuck in that little corner of the dream world, especially, man.
After meeting two dream
After
interpretation
meeting
freaks.
two dream interpretation freaks. Yeah. And so the more, I share my dreams with other dreamers, especially Tree, when we first started talking, before I started messaging with Jenniffer as well, really examining and looking at new ways of analyzing or making sense of those dreams as far as emotion goes, and thinking about dreams in more of a poetic and metaphorical sense. Like I read my dreams as if I'm reading a piece of poetry, and
Ooh, I like that.
sometimes right, we get lost at the surface, kind of like literal level of dreams, and I think that's when sometimes people are like, oh, that's
totally.
so wild and random, like it's so silly, it doesn't make any sense. But you start looking at it metaphorically and things do pick up. Or even I think it's Jenniffer and other dreamers I've heard share, looking for the things that rhyme, the wordplay that happens
Oh yeah, that's my
in
favorite.
dreams.
Jen's so good at that.
She's so good at that.
Like, so good.
What was my dream? I had a dream where I was like skateboarding, and for me that was like, oh, me traveling or something and moving. And I was in a dream circle, and someone said, oh, like that makes me think of like skating through life. And that was one of the first moments where I was like, oh snap, that was real clever. And that our brains, it's like understanding dreams is understanding how our individual brain works, our own thought patterns and process. It's just back to the importance of such a great tool for self-reflection.
I was going to say, one of my dream mentors, David Jenkins, he said when I would call him with a dream, and we would see what was going to be the next step in that repertoire with the dream. So the dream comes back at you with a different. He called it a huddle. So that all your dream characters are huddling, and they're going to come back, and give you a different kind of dream that evolves the one right before it. But that was the first time that I started to view dreams as a conversation that just continues from one day to the next. And the thought of the dreams or the dream characters or the energy behind the dream characters, which is what some people call the dream maker, that was the first time I was like totally hooked, because that meant that something higher hidden within me was going to come back at me with a different version or an evolution of what I worked through during the dream work while I was awake.
I really like that. I really like that dreams is conversation.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I really do like that too, Jenniffer. I mean, especially when you're doing a lot of like integrative dreaming and there's themes that you're working with, like say for a whole month of dreams where you keep same theme keeps like cropping up all the time. It is like a continuum of a conversation, and I like doing that sort of dream work around the moon cycles too. So I kind of sometimes have noticed that setting intents for dream work on a new moon, through that period of when the moon is new and then goes full, a lot of activity happens, and it's usually around the time of full moon where the clarity of the dream meaning comes through. So that long conversation through the moon cycle, and then the reveal kind of around the time of the full moon.
Not to mention, right now we are in what people call Mercury retrograde, which makes for some interesting dream work. I actually have been I've been reading the book by Jenniffer on the liminal dreaming. And that is like a hypnagogic stage gone wild. It's like really staying there, surfing the liminal without trying to go into the dream. And I recently had an experience tree where I'm sitting in a table, and this is all in a liminal dream. And Casey Clar is by my side. She's also a YouTuber. She does dreams and astral. And then she turned into you.
Really?
And then something started coming out of your head, and you weren't you anymore. And what came out was a bird head. And I remember thinking, a bird head? That's strange. And then a ball came out of the bird head. And that's when it turned like emerald green and looked at me, and it was Thoth.
Wow.
Oh.
And he said, "You've been called."
Oh,
And
that's
yeah.
amazing.
And I remember that I had posted "You've been called" on Facebook like earlier that day.
Mm-hmm.
So it was kind of I don't know, but I'm starting to really enjoy this new liminal dreaming, which is, for me, I usually would just do, twirl around in the hypnagogic, but I never really looked at it as a place to like the destination. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh, it's amazing. I really love working in the hypnagogic.
I was going to jump
How
on
else?
from the hypnagogic stuff of doing yoga nidra practices.
Mm.
And yoga nidra translates to like yogic sleep. And it's a very wonderful complementary practice to lucid dreaming. And it's basically, in like Shavasana, which is the last pose we do in yoga. And Shavasana is corpse pose. So even that tie-in, you're practicing
like
corpse
a
pose.
corpse.
And yoga nidra is very structured. There's a very specific pattern and rhythm to it, but it's built around getting you into this hypnagogic state. And people can still, have very rich hypnagogic imagery or just like thoughts or sounds. Sensations can come up. It's a really definitely interesting place to explore.
And there's different plants that you can explore as well that help trigger more hypnagogic imagery and activation.
You're growing some
Kalea
yourself, right? Yeah.
Zakatashishi. Yeah, I've got some Kalea Zakatashishi seedlings that someone gifted me, a fellow dreamer. Yeah, so it's amazing all the different ways in which you can kind of get to the hypnagogic. Of course,
I have never even tried. I have never even tried
Mugwort?
mugwort. Like that's how much of a plant virgin I am.
well, we'll have to
They're
get you
both pretty
started.
bitter. And a friend of mine actually just gifted me some Kalea as well, like a few days ago.
Oh,
Wow.
great. Great.
I use Kalea, and so do you, right? In Tree and in your workshops as well.
Yeah, I do. I subject all the dreamers to that very bitter brew.
It's the most bitter thing I've ever had in my life.
I know it really is bitter, but I see it as almost a form of like lucid initiation. Like, come on, dream explorers, you gotta knock some of this
dream
back.
hair on your chest.
On your chest.
Yeah, exactly.
But what happens when they take it all together within the group in your workshop? Is it like super trippy as a group, or is it just like everybody gets in the mood? Or
well, everyone pretty much gags at the same time.
For sure. Yeah, that's a moment. That's a real moment.
That's a shared gagging reflex thing. But usually I guide people through a hypnagogic meditation just to kind of get the feel of what it's like to look beyond when your eyes are closed and really connect with the space of the dream imagery and dream language. So it's a really good way to sort of warm people up to that. I mean, the best time to do it obviously is when you're sleeping, or before sleep, or before a nap, or in meditation, or even yoga, like you were saying, Alej. But it's funny because we're not really taught how to do that, how to look at through our mind's eye. And it's interesting, but I find Kalea Zakatashishi really kind of helps people get into that zone a bit. I think because you're doing the tea ritual and everyone's sort of like-minded and together. And it's just a nice way of kind of bringing everyone into that state.
So it's kind of like the first moment where it's intentional to go into the hypnagogic. I mean, for the group.
Absolutely. And as you know, as conscious dreamers, everything starts with intent. And even in magic work, everything starts with intent. That's the foundation for moving anything forward. And how powerful is that when you have a whole group with the same intent to connect? And what I've noticed in the group setting, in the hypnagogic meditation that I do with the Kalea Zakatashishi, we share afterwards, and a lot of people have very similar imagery. So I have a few people who are like, I was flying above a mountain, I saw a mountain. Some people are like, I kept seeing shapes of birds. So it always kind of impresses people that there's many mutual shared sort of imagery that people share.
Alejandro, did you experience that too?
I kind of structured it a little differently, but I've used Kalea once in my workshops. Usually I just do like short lectures. I do a lot of various kinds of workshops. Some are more lectured. I do teach a weekly yoga class. And we used the Kalea during my first sleepover. So we had already done some meditation, and I used the Kalea more as like a tea time before we all got settled in to go back into bed. And so as they were going to sleep, I was guiding them, but didn't wake them up again until a couple hours later. And that morning in the dream circle, not a lot of similar experiences, but a lot of people, everyone got lucid, which was awesome. There's only 3 people. My first sleepover. But it was super amazing. Everyone basically set all their intentions, and the intention setting is really, really huge. I don't think that could be emphasized enough, and it is powerful. I do have a friend who uses the Kalea more for like active imagination sessions, a form of meditation where you like dip into the dream and walk through it in the waking state.
But what do you guys take on, there's a lot of supplements and gadgets and a lot of different techniques out there of like how to lucid dream. And, there's a lot of promises of lucid dream in 24 hours. And
no, I've had pretty cool experiences with galantamine. And I was on a retreat with Dr. Stephen LaBerge, where we all participated in a study of galantamine, and they published this
Really?
research, with a bunch of groups, and they found that the galantamine taken in the middle of the night, you kind of double it up with like a wake back to bed. As soon as you wake up or 4 to 5 hours after originally going to sleep, take the galantamine. Again, setting your intention, doing any hypnagogic meditations. I light some candles so I don't wake up too much. You stay, he calls it an anti-nap, where you stay up in the middle of an extended sleep period and then go back to sleep. The lucidity rate went up like 200%. Super wild.
Literally.
Wild, literally wild. Yeah, that's wake-induced lucid dream for people who aren't so hip to the dream lingo. It's wild.
But if they're listening to a Dream Freaks podcast, they are
I mean,
hip to the
we don't
lingo.
want to exclude the newcomers. All are welcome here. The pills, they won't, they don't do all the work for you. It definitely takes work, and it's a sort of mental muscle that we build up. But they do work. I like to view them as like, sometimes like training wheels, or like booster packs or something. It's like not something you necessarily want to do all the time. You don't want to rely on it. But like if you've been
Right.
having a dry
Yeah.
spell, which sometimes happens, using a bit of galantamine to boost up. Or if someone's been trying for a really long time and they're having trouble, like really just breaking through. I know when I was really young, I would notice I would get so close to lucidity, I was having a lot of false awakenings. I feel the
Yeah.
false awakenings are extra frustrating because your brain is like trying to wake up. You're like metaphorically waking up in the dream, and you think you're awake,
That's insane.
and your room looks exactly as it is. You may start like getting ready for whatever you have to do. Sometimes I'll even false awaken dream journal. I'm like writing down the dreams I just had in the dream, and then you actually wake up and you're like, damn it.
Dream within a dream,
it's just a
right?
new dream, but you wake up from the dream into the next dream about the dream, like remembering the dream you just had.
Yeah,
Yeah.
usually in my false awakenings, I've been looking for the person I've dreamt about to tell them about my dream. It's funny.
Yeah. I've done that a few times where you end up telling someone about your dream within the dream.
How many
Oh,
times can that
man.
happen within a dream? I've had that happen like
It
3
can
or
happen
4
a couple,
times
yeah.
once.
Yeah, I might
That's
have
like
had a
crazy.
couple, but I don't think I've had any more than 4.
I've only had 1 or 2 that have been 3 or 4, and it was pretty insane. Because I woke up the real time one, and I was
That's what the
doubting.
reality checks are for, huh?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so speaking of reality checks, what do you guys do for reality checks?
I love to jump around places. Well, even throughout my day, like I'll like, oh, am I dreaming? And I'll try to take a hop, and I'll just like pretend I'll just take off somewhere. Which in my dreams I would just start taking off, and there was a moment where I had to stop myself from flying away everywhere in my dreams. I was like, all right, Alejandro, you're enough playing Batman.
I like to do dreaming awake moments where I pretend, or it's not really pretend because it's just more of awareness that I'm dreaming while I'm awake. And by practicing that on a daily basis, it gets my mind used to dreaming when I'm not dreaming, so that when I am dreaming, it's almost immediate the recognition of being in a dream, noticing themes, noticing repetitive things like, is there a predominant color, pattern, words that I'm hearing, that I'm reading. So yeah, that's what I do.
I find that, the go-to thing to do for lucid dreamers, I guess, is to look at your own hands, which I have done many times, and I do find my hands in my dreams at times. But I kind of been trying to do over the years a more kind of like almost like a mindfulness, but mixed with intent, where I'll just sit and completely observe my surroundings and really analyze my surroundings to the point of detail, so that I'm really taking it in. My present awareness is just really in the moment. So for example, if I'm at a cafe, I'll just really take in the moment and really observe people in the setting. And I'll play around with the fact of is this a dream or this is reality, and just play back and forth with that kind of balance of, is this dreaming, is this reality, and then just really taking in the atmosphere. And what I find is the more I do that, when I do have a dream, I end up taking in the atmosphere of the dream a lot more, and therefore my chance of lucidity is quite great, because I'm really present. So I find that the more present you are in your day-to-day life, the more lucid you are in your waking life, and lucid in the sense where you're really taking in your environment, you're very present, the more you have a chance of doing that in your dream states.
Interesting. So basically, you're saying that dreaming is a practice of presence, of being present.
Yeah.
The dream, not dreaming, the dream awareness, like the awareness of dreaming. That's the way I think that's exactly why I do it without the words you use. But yeah, that's being in the moment, being present, and I also like to view it as dissolving.
Yes.
So I'm like dissolving. I stop seeing things with labels and words and names, and I just start to notice and describe everything without its name, without its label. And so instead of a car, it would be, a vehicle with four wheels.
So one of my favorite definitions of lucidity is being aware of the dream as the dream is happening. And conversely, in exactly the same way, mindfulness is being aware of what is happening as it is happening.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so fundamentally, lucidity is a practice of awareness, and not just lucid dreaming, but lucid living.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And when we have this moment of recognition, we understand that we are empowered to help shift and create whatever experience that we find ourselves in.
We become creators.
Right.
Yeah.
Based upon our expectation, our intentions, our will, our beliefs, our focus. In our waking state is a shared dream. All the dreamers are putting stuff into this shared experience. And in a lucid dream, it's our unconscious mind that is orchestrating things that we can never get full control over, but that we can create a relationship with.
I like that.
Yeah. It's like being in the flow of pure consciousness. And you can achieve this in your waking states as well as your lucid states, as well as your dream states. But it's like it's going beyond the mind. It's just you're the observer. And it's like you're in the flow of pure consciousness.
Yeah.
Well, I think flow is the key word. Synchronicity, flow, all that increases when you're present in the moment and aware, dreaming awake.
Absolutely.
There's a sense of effortlessness.
And sometimes you have to stalk that moment. Like when you're not in that moment, it's not the end of the world, because sometimes I am totally not in that moment and I'm struggling. And then that's when I stop myself and I remind myself to find that flow. And through that practice of what you're calling mindfulness, lucid living, what Tree's calling being in the moment and present, and what I'm calling dreaming awake. It's finding that moment. It's like a portal I go through, right? I'm not in the flow. I start dreaming awake and suddenly it's like, boom.
Yeah, it is a flow. And it's interesting because we're all musicians, and I think we can all probably agree that you can find that flow while you're playing music as well. So it's interesting how music really ties into this pure form of consciousness. So you probably can attest to the fact that if you're really just playing an instrument and you are just really in the moment and you're just flowing with the sounds that are coming from the instrument that you're playing.
Channeling the sounds.
Yeah, so it's like you're very present and you're like in a pure flow, pure form of consciousness. And I find that dreaming is very similar to music in a lot of ways, like the energy of it, the flow of it.
Do you get music in your dreams? I do.
Oh yeah, I get
Yes,
like whole lyrics and things.
Yeah, I
lots.
love that.
I love it. I brought things over into the waking life and hummed it into my phone and like composed it afterwards.
Yeah, because that can
Um,
be lost in a second.
Oh, so easily. Just like
yeah,
boom, bye bye.
especially
Your
in the hip.
it is gone.
Yeah, especially in the hypnagogic state. I get a lot of music come through in hypnagogic. Even just last week, I was telling you, Jenny, I was like having a daytime nap, and I could still hear the sounds of the room and the seagulls outside. Um, they were calling, and I started hearing like this, like flute music that was sort of like a shaman, like a shaman sort of South American wooden flute music, like a very
Mhm.
a full song, a full melody, and it was sort of superimposed at the same time as the sounds in the room. So I was actually like really quite confused because I thought, is that music in the room? Because I was very lucid and very aware. It was afterwards where I kind of jolted myself kind of out of the hypnagogic and asked my partner who was reading a book in the room, like, did you hear that flute music? And he's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, no, you were playing flute music, right? He's like, does it look like I got a flute on me? I'm like, I'm like, no, but you must have been playing something off of YouTube, or were you playing the stereo? He's like, no, I'm just sitting here reading, and I was like, it was so clear, it was so real, it was like it was in the room, super magical moment. But yeah, music can come in all these different states of dream states.
You just
Yeah.
reminded me of a dream. Don't you just love it when it's an old dream? Where I'm sitting in like an adobe house without a roof, and I am editing an audio track uh, that is a virtual. What do you call it when it's a holographic? And I'm editing with my fingers, like in the air, and it's music, and it's like talking honestly like a podcast.
Oh.
Oh,
And I remember that it was like old in the like ancient in the sense of being in the land, but it was also like technologically advanced, like holographic in the air. So
I love
That's
that
really
when
cool.
when these sort of science fiction aspects kind of come through in the astral or in dreams and lucid dreams, where it's sort of like this other sort of technology that you are interacting with.
that's
Yeah,
another thing. Speaking about dreams triggers memory. So I almost feel like it's one of the most important things when you want to start remembering your dreams is to start talking about your dreams and listening to other people's dreams. It's almost like this energy that just starts to come out in both people.
yeah, absolutely. And with that
For
energy,
sure.
it's synchronicity as well. And that coming through, and that's when it gets very
Like
interesting.
mutual awareness. Yeah,
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 I
the
love it.
synchronicities like the three of us have all had have been really wild.
Oh yeah.
it's fun, isn't it? It's great.
It's a fun game for sure.
But that's how I think the universe rolls.
How we roll.
And
Yeah.
a lot of people say, "Oh, synchronicity is just happy coincidence, and what the odds are just But I really think that the multiverse that we live in is just it's pretty amazing, and it's full of like the cosmic joke and high humor and lots of winks and nods, And I think synchronicities are part of that, but they also can help guide you in sort of confirm things for you. When
Yeah.
you get these little synchronistic moments along your path that
Mhm.
make you kind of go, oh, what? No, that's a good confirmation, or
Well,
perhaps,
yeah, that's what I feel like it is what the other person does for you when you have synchronicities is they're confirming.
mm,
Um, but I love that that a lot of this is weaved together, or what do you say, woven together, where it comes through a multiple, like that's when you get into the collective, the group and the group mind, and how a group that is sharing dreams together starts to dream for one another, uh, they synchronize. That's my favorite part, is when a group synchronizes in events and in symbols and synchronicity. It's like it starts to bridge over to the other people.
absolutely. And I think this is kind of an ancient way of dreaming, and we used to be in more tribal sort of setups. And there would be the seers or the shamans, and the dreams were taken seriously, and they still are in pockets of the world today, or the tribes see the dreams as a very serious and important thing. So the tribe kind of dreams together, and they sort of look to the dreams for guidance for their day-to-day life, and even for just simple things like where to go on the hunt, and all these kind of aspects of day-to-day life. But that's a really good example of, we are intrinsically human, and we can bring this sort of energy back. I mean, we have, like, we say we're each other's tribe, dream tribe, and in fact, we've all had kind of dreams that have helped each other along our paths.
Yeah.
And I can say the same for family members, and I can say the same for other friends, where there's a sort of shared dream going on, and it's all for guidance and help. It's for almost like evolution and journey through this path. So the dream, the shared collective dream, I think it's often like not looked at enough.
I don't know. I was going to ask, as dream guides, like, how often do you find yourselves in other people's dreams, guiding them?
Well, I have this thing where sometimes I won't dream for a couple of nights, and I'll be like, weird, I don't even recall a dream from like the last night or the last 2 nights. And then I'll get someone messaging me or sending me a text saying, hey, you were in my dreams and you were helping me. And so I've got this thing now where it's like, when I don't remember my dreams, I assume, I'm in someone else's dream helping them in some kind of way. But I've experienced that before, where I've set intents before going to sleep. Most of my intents are actually to help other people in dreams. So before I go to sleep, I'll say, okay, whoever needs some help, I'm there. And sometimes I'll have a dream where I'm helping a friend over a certain situation. Usually it's around death and dying. So it's like death doula work, but in the dream realms. And then I'll share the dream. I'll share the dream with the person that, is bereaved or helping. And usually it has a healing quality. Just even writing the dream out to the other person is enough to bring emotion from them to confirm like that dream really released me in some kind of way.
But that's if the person remembers the dream. Because what I find happens to me is that I help a person in a dream and they don't remember, or they don't dream at all, or they think they don't dream. But the way that I've been able to confirm that it is the person is because the dreamer aspect of that person has given me a piece of information about their waking reality. And I barely know the people usually. So they give me a valuable piece of information that it's almost like, go tell my waking aspect this, so that they know that this was real, because they're not going to remember. So I usually go up to the person and I tell them the symbol, object, or that little message, and they usually freak out. Like, how did you know this? Because they don't remember, A, they don't remember the dream, and B, they barely know me. But somehow the piece of information was real. And if from then on, I used to just tell them about it, and now I don't do that because it freaks people out. So what I do now, if the person doesn't remember or is not a dreamer, what I do is I first befriend them. Not fix, I try to work with their waking reality, because obviously the dream is trying to give them advice about something in their waking life. So I stop trying to get obsessed about if they're remembering their dream or if it's about the dream. And I start just becoming their friend, genuinely working with them through whatever daily things they're going through. And that's the way I make the connection.
That's really incredible.
Well, you can't go to school for these dream guide roles, right? I mean, this is kind of thing. It's like how what you just articulated, Jenniffer, was just, that's how you've intuitively worked in those realms and been sensitive to people and, freaking people out or whatever. And also, that's funny too, because remember, Alej, I had a dream. It was a lucid dream, and I was at like some sort of party at a house, and you were doing yoga, and you showed me how to do some yoga poses. And like, I'm not a yoga person. Like, I mean, I'm more interested in now because of friends and because of Alej. and he showed me a warrior pose, but I didn't know what that was. And I remember I made a video the next day, and I said, Alej, you were showing me this, and I was doing these moves.
So
And
that
but
night,
in the dream, that was amazing because there was this amazing electric blue energy that was coming through, and I could understand the importance of yoga in an energy way, and also for dreaming as well. It was really interesting.
yeah, that night we were doing for my friend's birthday. I think it was a new moon or a full moon, but we were doing a ritual where we were making sigils. And the intention that I wrote down was to be a warrior of the dream state.
Wow.
Yeah, and we took our sigils, we put some plant offerings in the sigils and these pieces of paper, and we took a candle. I don't live too far from this river. And we went over the river and we burned our intentions over the river. And like a couple of hours later, I mean, you're like 7 hours ahead of us. You wake up and you're like, I just had this dream. And I was like, oh my God, I just did this intention ceremony. And it was really wild.
And I was like, this was the pose you're doing. You're like, that is the warrior pose. That's what my intention
they were
was.
all the warrior 1, 2, and 3.
I feel that that's cool though, because Tree is in UK, and your dreaming schedule is a little bit, maybe overlaps just a little bit with ours.
Yeah.
And I feel like we're in this like night and day dream and waking differences, which I think makes for interesting, like what can leak in through someone's consciousness in the collective environment. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It is really fascinating. But I kind of I'm of the opinion that time doesn't even really exist in a linear fashion, and it doesn't
Right.
really matter when your head is down to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
Like I even think that with mutual dreaming, you don't necessarily have to be dreaming or sleeping at the same time.
No, you don't.
And I've done mutual dreaming experiments and also just mutual connecting experiments with a fellow dreamer who went into a darkroom meditation for a whole week. And I said, hey, would you be up for doing an experiment, which is trying to connect through states of consciousness while you're in there, because you're you're probably in a prime way of being able to connect, because he's in the dark for a whole week in total silence.
Wow.
So I don't know if you know about darkroom meditations.
Doesn't
You're
it, like,
you're
release
in isolation.
DMT?
Yes. And so after day
Yeah.
3, your melatonin levels just like kick in, and you start having waking dreams and visions with your eyes open in the dark.
That is wild.
And yeah, and he was like in there like doing his meditation practice for an entire week in the dark, totally no talking, there's no one in there with him. And you sort yourself out, like to go to the bathroom, or you just need to find your way, and it's all very contained, and you're fasting or sometimes just light food. Anyway, so we did this experiment for a week where I was tuning in and like in the dream state, setting intents to connect. But then also through my meditation practice, I was putting in intents to connect as well. So in my meditations, I was also connecting. I felt a lot of imagery in my meditations. So I would jot down all my impressions, what I've seen, and all the dreams that I had. And then for a whole week, I compiled all this information. And that at the end of the week, I decided to make an audio recording of all the experience of each day. And he was in his darkroom meditation, and he brought in a little USB recording device. So he with the tape over top of the little blue light, so there was no light, so he could be in the darkness. And he was recording his experiences. And then what we did is we swapped experiences at the end, and it was phenomenal how much meshed up of shared experiences.
That's amazing.
There was so many shared experiences with dream symbology, with imagery, and even just knowings. Like I had this whole thing about his dad who was dead, although I don't know that. I didn't know his dad had died. He's not like a close friend or anything. And I had this whole experience come through in a meditation, and he had an experience with his dad during the dark room meditation of his dad coming to him and them making, bridging their forgiveness. And, so there was really amazing synchronicities that happen. So I really believe that with mutual dreaming and connection and consciousness, it doesn't necessarily have to be you sleeping at the same time as the other person.
Mm-hmm.
All it takes is just the intent, to connect, and you can do it while you're awake.
While the other person's awake, you might get like what you might seep in is their experience while they're awake, while the other person's asleep.
Oh, I
So
see
like
what you mean. Yeah.
Alejandro and I are having a conversation and you're in the middle of the night. We always wondered, would you tap into that?
Yeah. It's in your
And you
dream.
have. And you have.
Yeah, this is like beyond the realms of perception now, right? It's like psychic and clairvoyant hour here at the Dream Freaks.
So in the spirit of this introductory podcast, we will now transition into a tarot card that Tree Carr will pull for us.
From the Rider-Waite deck. So this being our pilot episode, we're going to pull a card to see how it might tie in some kind of way to our to this first episode, or maybe even for you guys who are listening. Maybe this card in some kind of way will bring you inspiration or guidance, or maybe even a little bit of synchronicity. So we've pulled the Nine of Pentacles, and the Nine of Pentacles is a card of abundance. We've got a maiden who's in her garden, and she's kind of accumulated 9 golden pentacles, and she's got a bird on her wrist, and she's enjoying the fruits of her labor. So the Nine of Pentacles also has this sort of this theme of accumulative enjoyment. And there's also a really lovely flow with the Nine of Pentacles in an energetic sense. So the energy of abundance, which is a really good thing to have when you're sort of dreaming.
Mm-hmm.
The dream is there to abundantly show you something. A lot of us kind of shrug off dreams that are like boring, and they go, "Oh, that dream was actually banal or boring." But even in those sort of dreams, there's an abundant message for you. So for the Nine of Pentacles, I think it's quite a nice card to pull for this pilot episode.
Pentacles, I view it as very physical reality.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like bringing the creative and the dream into our waking reality.
And also with the Pentacles, there, it deals with the pragmatic. So this is like literally coins. So you're like money and finances and all the pragmatic things. So
she's holding a falcon, right?
Yeah, on her like left hand.
I recall it being connected to the shadow or the dark side of our nature. And I almost feel like it's that kind of bird has to be directed or sent on a mission or something like that. And she's where's she holding it? I can't see the card.
It's like on her left. It's on her left hand, and she's actually kind of got like a falcon glove on her hand. So that's those sort of gloves that you wear when you work with bird of prey, where they're like flying back and forth and landing on your hand. And she obviously instructs it to come and go. But it's kind of like almost a symbol of spiritual self-control in a way.
Yeah. It's like mastery of lucidity.
Yeah,
that's what it is. Good one, Alej.
But yeah, so it is, a furthering like signal of abundance and plentifulness.
I really like this card.
Yeah, I think it's good. I mean, she's worked hard to create this abundance, I mean, this is the thing. There's hard work that was put into this. She hasn't gotten this abundance out of just like sheer luck or inheritance. This is something that she's actually worked hard at. Yeah, and then she's enjoying the fruits of the labor in her garden. Well-deserved success.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much, Tree, for sharing that with us. We've reached the very end of our first episode. Thank you all so much for tuning in with us. You can follow us and find us on all social media platforms: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. Stay tuned for future episodes and announcements. For now, sweet dreams, good night, stay lucid.